The morning sun slanted through the tall windows of Lincoln High School's English classroom, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor in Boise, Idaho. The room buzzed with the usual chaos of first-period backpacks thudding onto desks, sneakers squeaking, and the low hum of gossip weaving through the air. Ava Martinez pushed through the door, her dark braid swinging as she adjusted the straps of her worn canvas backpack. She was new to Lincoln, a transfer student who'd only been in town a few weeks, and already the weight of curious glances followed her. She kept her head up, eyes scanning for her assigned seat near the front, the one she'd claimed on her first day. But today, something was off. Connor Hayes was sprawled across her desk like he owned it. One leg dangled over the edge, his sneaker tapping rhythmically against the metal frame, while his other foot rested on her chair. His blonde hair fell carelessly over his forehead, and a smirk played on his lips as he leaned back, arms crossed. A couple of his friends lounging at nearby desks snickered, their eyes darting between Connor and Ava. The air felt thick, charged with the kind of tension that comes when someone's looking for a fight they think they've already won. Ava stopped a few steps from the desk, her fingers tightening around the strap of her backpack. She noticed her notebook, the one with her name neatly written in black ink on the cover, shoved halfway off the desk, its pages bent under Connor's weight. Her eyes flicked to the desk's surface, and her stomach twisted. Scratched into the wood in jagged, uneven letters was a slur, sharp and ugly, meant to cut. It hadn't been there yesterday. Connor's smirk widened as he followed her gaze, but he didn't say a word about it. He didn't have to. "You lost, Martinez." Connor's voice was lazy, dripping with mockery, loud enough to draw more eyes. A girl in the back stifled a laugh. Another pulled out her phone, the faint click of a camera app cutting through the chatter. Ava didn't flinch. She set her backpack down on the floor with deliberate care, the soft thud grounding her. "That's my desk," she said, her voice steady, not loud but clear enough to carry. The room quieted just a fraction as heads turned. Connor leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees now, his face inches from hers. "Your desk. Funny, I don't see your name on it." He paused, glancing at the graffiti with a knowing glint in his eyes. "Well, not exactly your name." His friends laughed again, louder this time, and the sound grated like sandpaper. Ava's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. Her eyes locked on his, dark and unflinching, and something in her gaze made Connor's smirk falter just for a second. Ms. Carter, the English teacher, was at the front of the room, her glasses perched on her nose as she scribbled something on the whiteboard. She hadn't noticed the exchange yet, or maybe she was pretending not to. Ava stepped closer to the desk, her sneakers silent on the floor. "You're in my seat, Connor. Move." Her tone wasn't angry, but it had an edge like a blade wrapped in velvet. The room felt smaller now, the chatter fading as more students tuned in. A boy named Sam, who usually kept to himself, straightened in his seat, his pencil pausing mid-doodle. Connor laughed, a sharp barking sound that echoed off the walls. "Move." "Nah, I'm good right here." He kicked the desk lightly, making Ava's notebook slide further one corner, crumpling against the floor. "Why don't you find another spot? Maybe one in the back where you belong." The last part landed heavier, laced with something uglier than his usual teasing. The slur on the desk seemed to pulse in the silence that followed, and Ava's fingers twitched at her side. She could feel the eyes on her, waiting for her to snap, to back down, to do something. She didn't. Instead, she leaned forward, resting one hand on the edge of the desk close enough that Connor shifted back slightly. "You sure you want to make this your fight?" she asked, her voice low, almost conversational. The question hung in the air, and for a moment, Connor didn't have a comeback. His smirk twitched again, and he opened his mouth to say something, but the classroom door swung open, cutting him off. Mr. Reynolds, the school counselor, stepped in his loafers, clicking against the linoleum. He was a tall man with a calm demeanor, but his eyes were sharp, taking in the scene in an instant. Connor lounging on Ava's desk. Ava standing with her hand on the edge, the crumpled notebook on the floor, and the faint tension rippling through the room. Ms. Carter finally looked up her marker, freezing mid-stroke. "Everything okay here, Mr. Reynolds?" asked his voice even, but carrying an authority that made the class settle instantly. Connor straightened his smirk, returning, though it wasn't as confident now. "Yeah, just helping the new girl figure out where she fits." He gestured vaguely at Ava, as if she were an afterthought. A few students exchanged glances, and the girl with the phone lowered it her thumb, hesitating over the screen. Ava didn't move her hand, still on the desk, her eyes flicking to the graffiti again. She didn't say anything, but the way she stood, shoulders square, chin up, said enough. Mr. Reynolds walked closer, his gaze shifting from Connor to the desk. His brow furrowed slightly as he noticed the slur scratched into the wood. "Whose desk is this?" he asked, his tone neutral, but pointed. Connor shrugged, leaning back again. "Hers, I guess. Doesn't matter. Plenty of seats in here." He waved a hand dismissively, but his voice had lost some of its edge. Ava's eyes met Mr. Reynolds', and for a moment something passed between them, a quiet understanding. "It's my desk," she said, her voice still calm, but there was a weight to it now, like she was drawing a line in the sand. Mr. Reynolds nodded, his gaze shifting back to Connor. "Then I suggest you find your own, Mr. Hayes, unless you want to explain to me why you're sitting here and why this desk has new markings." The room went silent. Even Connor's friends stopped laughing. The slur seemed to loom larger now, its jagged letters a silent accusation. Connor's smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of unease. He opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to deflect, but Ava spoke first, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "He's right, Connor. Plenty of seats. Pick one. Or keep this one, and see what happens." Her words weren't loud, but they landed like a challenge. The class held its breath, waiting for Connor's next move. His eyes darted to his friends, then to Mr. Reynolds, who stood with his arms crossed, watching. For a moment it looked like Connor might push back, might double down on his bravado. But something in Ava's stare, steady, unyielding, made him hesitate. He slid off the desk, his sneakers hitting the floor with a dull thud. Whatever he muttered, grabbing his bag and moving to a desk in the back. The room exhaled. Ms. Carter cleared her throat, turning back to the whiteboard. "Let's get started, everyone," she said, her voice a little too bright. The chatter slowly returned, but it was quieter now, subdued. Ava picked up her notebook, smoothing out the crumpled pages with care. She sat down, her movements deliberate, and opened it to a fresh page. The slur was still there, scratched into the wood, but she didn't look at it. Not yet. Sam, the quiet kid, leaned over from his desk nearby. "That was intense," he whispered, his eyes wide. Ava didn't respond right away. She pulled out a pen, her fingers steady, and started writing. But the corner of her mouth twitched just slightly, like she knew something no one else did. Outside, the bell for first period rang sharp and clear, but the tension in the room didn't fully dissolve. It lingered like static in the air, and everyone knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The rest of the class passed in a blur of notes and discussion, but Ava's mind was elsewhere. She could still feel the weight of Connor's words, the sting of the graffiti, the way the room had watched her, waiting for her to break. She hadn't. She wouldn't. Boise was a small city, smaller than most realized, and her family, the Martinezes, had roots here that ran deeper than anyone in this room could guess. Connor didn't know that yet. Neither did the others. But they would. By the time the bell rang for lunch, whispers were already spreading. Some were about the graffiti, others about the way Ava had stood her ground without raising her voice. A few kids avoided her eyes as they filed out, but Sam lingered, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. Ava nodded, slipping her notebook into her bag. "I'm fine," she said, and there was a quiet confidence in her tone that made Sam nod back like he believed her. As she stepped into the hallway, the crowd parted just a little, not enough to be obvious, but enough to notice. Ava kept walking, her braid swinging her steps, sure. Connor was nowhere in sight, but she knew he'd be back. People like him always were. And when he came, she'd be ready, because some fights weren't about desks or words or even graffiti. They were about lines, lines. You didn't cross lines. You held lines that decided who you were when the dust settled. And Ava Martinez wasn't here to lose. The lunch bell rang through the hallways of Lincoln High like a starting gun, and the classroom erupted into motion. Chairs scraped back zippers, hissed open on backpacks, and the hum of conversation swelled as students streamed toward the door. Ava lingered at her desk for a moment, her pen still poised over her notebook, finishing a last sentence before capping it and sliding it into her bag. The graffiti slur was still there, etched into the wood like a scar, but she traced her fingers over it lightly, almost absently, before standing up. She wasn't going to let it define her day. Not today. Outside in the courtyard, the Idaho sun was high and bright, warming the concrete benches and the patchy grass where groups of kids clustered with their trays. Ava scanned the area, spotting Lila at their usual spot, under the big oak tree. Lila was her first real friend at Lincoln, a bubbly sophomore with curly red hair and a laugh that could cut through any awkward silence. They'd bonded over a shared love of graphic novels in the library during Ava's first week. As Ava approached tray in hand, Lila waved her over, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "You okay after that mess in English?" Lila asked, as Ava sat down unwrapping her sandwich. The courtyard was alive with chatter, but Lila kept her voice low, leaning in like they were sharing a secret. Ava nodded, taking a bite before answering. "Yeah, it's fine. Connor's just being Connor." She shrugged, but there was a tightness in her shoulders that Lila noticed. Lila glanced around, making sure no one was listening too closely. "He's such a jerk. I heard he's already telling people you overreacted like it was just a joke, spreading rumors that you're too sensitive about where you come from." She air-quoted the last part, her face twisting in disgust. Ava's eyes narrowed, but she didn't look surprised. She'd felt the shift in the hallway after class, the way some kids whispered when she passed the sidelong glances. Connor was doubling down, turning the confrontation into ammunition. "Let him talk," Ava said quietly, picking at her chips. "Words like that. They say more about him than me." Lila nodded, but she wasn't done. "You know, my brother went to school here a few years back. He told me stories about guys like Connor, always thinking they run the place until someone shows them otherwise." She paused, her fork hovering over her salad. "And, speaking of, I heard something about your family. Is it true your brother was some kind of legend here?" Ava smiled for the first time that day, a small, genuine curve of her lips. "Diego." "Yeah, he graduated 5 years ago. Captain of the soccer team, led them to state champs. But it wasn't just that. He started this community program, helping kids from the neighborhoods get scholarships. He's in college now, but people still talk about him." Lila's eyes widened. "Wait, Diego Martinez? Oh man, my brother idolized him, said he was like a hero around here. And your family, aren't they the ones who donated all that money to the library remodel last year?" Ava nodded modestly, not wanting to make a big deal of it. But Lila pressed on. "That's huge, Ava. Connor has no idea who he's messing with. If he disrespects that legacy, he's gonna regret it. Across the courtyard, Connor was holding court with his usual crew at a picnic table. His voice carried on the breeze, loud and boastful. She thinks she's all that coming in here like she owns the place. New girl from the south side acting tough. I was just messing with her desk, and she freaks out. His friends laughed, but it sounded forced, a little uneasy. One of them, a kid named Tyler, glanced over at Ava and Lila, then back at Connor. Dude, maybe lay off. I heard her brother was Diego Martinez. Remember him, guy, was a beast on the field. Connor waved it off, but his smirk faltered. So what? Her brother's not here. And who cares about some old soccer star? She's just another transfer trying to fit in where she doesn't belong. The words stung even from a distance, but Ava didn't hear them. She was focused on her lunch, chatting with Lila about weekend plans. The courtyard buzzed around them, kids trading snacks, phones pinging, with notifications, the occasional burst of laughter. But underneath it all, the rumors were spreading like wildfire. By the time lunch ended, whispers had evolved. Connor scratched something on her desk. She stood up to him without yelling. Her family's loaded or something. The power dynamic was shifting, subtle but undeniable. Back in the school building as classes resumed, Mr. Reynolds caught Connor in the hallway before his next period. Mr. Hayes, a word in my office. His tone left no room for argument. Connor rolled his eyes, but followed slouching into the chair across from the counselor's desk. The office was small, lined with motivational posters and a shelf of dusty trophies. Mr. Reynolds sat down, folding his hands. About what happened in Ms. Carter's class, the desk incident, and the marking on it. Connor shrugged. It was nothing. Just a prank. She overreacted. Mr. Reynolds leaned forward, his eyes steady. A prank? Connor, that kind of language isn't a joke. It's harmful. And sitting at Ava's desk, taunting her, that's bullying. But more than that, do you even know who Ava is? Connor snorted. Some new girl. What's the big deal? Mr. Reynolds paused, choosing his words carefully. The Martinez family has been part of this community for generations. Ava's father runs one of the biggest philanthropy organizations in Boise. They've funded scholarships, community centers, even parts of this school. Her brother, Diego. He's a local hero, not just for sports, but for the work he did here. Disrespecting Ava is like disrespecting all of that. Connor's face paled, the bravado draining away. I mean, how was I supposed to know? Mr. Reynolds shook his head. That's the point, Connor. You don't know people's stories. You assume and you act on it. Now, the graffiti needs to be reported, and you'll be facing consequences. But think about this. Actions like yours don't just disappear. They ripple out. Connor swallowed hard, staring at his shoes. The weight of it was sinking in the realization that he'd picked a fight with someone whose family held sway in ways he couldn't imagine. Word spread fast after that. By afternoon, class's classmates were distancing themselves from Connor. His friends were quieter, avoiding his eyes. In the hallways, kids who'd laughed at his jokes now gave him wide berth. Ava, meanwhile, walked with her head high, the whispers turning from curiosity to something like respect. In her next class, someone even offered her a seat up front, a small gesture, but telling. As the day wound down, Ava returned to the English classroom for a quick study hall. The desk was still there, the slur now covered with a sticky note from Ms. Carter, maintenance notified. Ava peeled it off, tracing the scratches again. It hurt, but it also fueled something in her, a quiet fire. She sat down, pulling out her notebook, and started writing. Not notes for class, but a list things she wanted to change, ways to honor her family's legacy here at Lincoln. Lila poked her head in the door. "Hey, want company?" Ava nodded, and they sat together, talking about Diego's stories about how he'd faced similar challenges and turned them into strength. "You're like him, you know," Lila said, "standing your ground without making a scene. That's power." Ava smiled faintly. "Maybe, but it's not over yet. Connor's not done." Lila grinned. "Bring it. You've got this." The bell rang again, signaling the end of the day. Students poured out, but Ava took her time. As she stepped into the fading sunlight, she felt the shift, the way eyes lingered on her now, with a mix of awe and caution. Connor was leaning against a locker nearby, his posture deflated. He caught her eye, opened his mouth like he might say something, but closed it again. Ava didn't stop. She kept walking, her presence carrying a new weight, like gravity had bent in her favor. That evening at home, Ava sat with her family around the dinner table. Her father, a sturdy man with kind eyes, listened as she recounted the day. "You handled it well, mija," he said, pride in his voice. "Remember, our name means something because of what we do, not what others say." Diego, home for the weekend, ruffled her hair. "Little sis taking after me already. Just don't let it get to you. Use it." Ava nodded, feeling the support wrap around her like armor. Back at school the next morning, the graffiti was gone, sanded smooth by maintenance, but the memory lingered, a reminder. Connor avoided her desk, slinking to the back without a word. The class settled in, but the air was different, charged with unspoken changes. Ava opened her notebook, pen in hand, ready for whatever came next. Because some revelations don't just expose truths, they rewrite the rules. And Ava Martinez was just getting started. The whispers continued, but now they were about her family, her strength. Kids who'd ignored her before nodded in the halls. Even Ms. Carter pulled her aside after class. "If you need anything, Ava, my door's open." Ava thanked her, but she knew she had what she needed, her resolve, her roots. Connor's attempt to undermine her had backfired, turning the spotlight on his flaws instead. As the week progressed, small things shifted. A group project paired Ava with some of Connor's former friends who were awkwardly polite now. Lila introduced her to more people, and stories about Diego circulated, painting Ava in a new light. Connor, isolated, ate lunch alone one day, his phone in hand, but no one texting back. The revelation had cracked his facade, and the cracks were spreading. Ava didn't gloat. That wasn't her style. Instead, she focused on her work, on building connections. In the courtyard at lunch, she and Lila planned a club idea, something to continue Diego's legacy, maybe a mentorship program. "This could be big," Lila said excitedly. Ava agreed, her mind racing with possibilities. The power dynamic wasn't just shifting, it was solidifying. And in the quiet moments, Ava reflected on how one stand could change everything. By Friday, the school felt different to her. The courtyard oak tree shaded new conversations, new alliances. Connor's rumors had fizzled, replaced by admiration for Ava's poise. Mr. Reynolds checked in, nodding approvingly. "You're handling this with grace," he said. Ava smiled. "Thanks, but it's not grace. It's knowing who I am." He chuckled. "That's the real power." As she walked home that afternoon, the Boise wind whipping through the streets, Ava felt empowered. The revelation wasn't just about her family's influence, it was about her own. She'd reclaimed more than a desk, she'd claimed her place. And whatever came next, she was ready. The sun hung low over Boise, casting a warm golden glow across Lincoln High's campus as the week drew to a close. The hallways, once crackling with the tension of Ava Martinez's confrontation with Connor Hayes, now carried a different current, one of quiet transformation. Whispers about the desk incident had morphed into murmurs of respect, curiosity, and something like awe. Ava moved through the corridors with her usual steady stride, her braids swaying gently, her dark eyes scanning the faces around her. The nods were new, small acknowledgments from classmates who'd once ignored her, a wave from a teacher lingering by the staff lounge, even a hesitant smile from Tyler, who'd once laughed at Connor's taunts. The graffiti slur on her desk was gone, sanded away by maintenance, but its shadow lingered, fueling Ava's resolve to turn this moment into something bigger in Ms. Carter's English class that Monday. The teacher's voice cut through the morning chatter with an announcement that shifted the room's energy. This Friday we're hosting a school-wide assembly on Boise's community history, she said, her glasses catching the light as she scanned the class. It's a chance to celebrate what makes our city unique. Its people, its stories. I'm looking for student volunteers to present. Anyone interested? A few hands went up, tentative, but Ava felt a spark ignite within her. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was a platform. Not to boast about her family's legacy, but to weave it into a broader narrative, one that could bridge divides and challenge assumptions. She raised her hand, her voice clear and confident. I'd like to present on local philanthropy and how families shape our community. Ms. Carter's eyes lit up. Perfect, Ava. You're on the list. In the back of the room, Connor sat slouched in his new seat, far from Ava's desk, which he hadn't dared touch since the confrontation. His once loud presence had dimmed his usual crew scattered to other tables at lunch. The whispers had turned against him, not cruelly, but with a distance that stung more than mockery. He'd tried to shrug it off, tossing out casual jabs in the locker room, but the laughs were forced, the silences heavy. Now, as Ava volunteered, his eyes flicked to her, then dropped to his desk where his fingers traced idle circles. Something was shifting in him, though pride kept it buried deep. After class, as students spilled into the hallway, Connor lingered by the door, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his sneakers scuffing the linoleum. Ava was zipping her backpack when she noticed him hovering. "Hey," he said, his voice low, almost swallowed by the noise of passing students. She looked up, her expression calm, but guarded a silent question in her eyes. "What's up, Connor?" He shifted his weight, avoiding her gaze. "About the desk thing, and what I said. I didn't know about your family. I'm sorry." The words were clumsy, like he'd rehearsed them, but hadn't found their heart. Ava slung her bag over her shoulder, standing to face him. "Sorry doesn't cut it," she said, not harshly, but with a weight that demanded more. "It's not just about my family. It's about why you thought it was okay to target me, because I'm new, because I'm from the South Side, because of how I look. You carved a line with that slur, Connor, whether you scratched it or not. You owned it." Connor's face reddened, a mix of shame and defensiveness flaring. "I didn't write it. Maybe one of the guys." He stopped, her steady gaze cutting through his excuse. "You sat there smirking," she said. "You let it happen. That's the point. You assumed I was less, that I didn't belong. My family's influence made you rethink. But what if I didn't have that? Would you still be sorry?" The questions landed like stones, each one heavier than the last. Connor's shoulders sagged, and for a moment he looked smaller. I don't know. I messed up. I get it now." Ava nodded, her voice softening, but firm. "Then show it. Words are cheap. Actions aren't." She walked past him, leaving him rooted to the spot, the weight of her words settling like dust. The days leading to the assembly buzzed with anticipation. Ava spent her evenings at home poring over notes at the kitchen table, her father offering quiet encouragement as he sipped coffee. "You're doing something important, Mija," he said, his eyes warm with pride. "Not just for us, but for everyone who feels unseen." Diego, home from college for a visit, leaned over her shoulder reading her outline. "You're gonna kill it, little sis. Just like I did with that state championship speech." He grinned, ruffling her hair, and Ava swatted him away, laughing. But their support grounded her, a reminder of the roots that gave her strength. At school, Lila was her biggest cheerleader, spreading the word about Ava's presentation. "It's gonna be epic," she said at lunch under the courtyard oak, her red curls bouncing as she gestured. "You're not just telling your story, you're showing everyone what Boise's about." Ava nodded, her mind racing with ideas. She didn't want her segment to be about her family's wealth or status. It was about resilience, about how her parents and Diego had turned challenges into opportunities for others. Scholarships for kids from struggling neighborhoods, mentorship programs that lifted up the next generation, donations that rebuilt the school library. These weren't boasts. They were proof that one person's stand could ripple outward. Friday arrived and the gym was transformed into an auditorium, rows of folding chairs stretching across the polished floor. Banners hung from the rafters proclaiming Boise's roots, our shared history, and the air carried the faint scent of popcorn from the AV Club's projector setup. Students streamed in, their chatter, a mix of excitement and restlessness, eager for a break from classes. Ava sat in the front row, her notes folded neatly in her lap, her heart thudding but her resolve firm. She glanced back, catching Connor's eye in the far row. He was alone, arms crossed, but his posture wasn't defiant. It was attentive, like he was waiting for something. Principal Ellis took the stage, his voice booming through the mic. "Today we celebrate what makes Boise home, its people, its stories. Our students have prepared presentations to share those roots. Let's give them our attention." The first few presenters went up. A junior talked about Boise's Basque festivals. A sophomore covered the city's tech growth. Then it was Ava's turn. She walked to the stage, her sneakers quiet on the wood, and adjusted the mic. The gym fell silent, hundreds of eyes on her. "Hi, everyone." She began, her voice steady despite the butterflies. "I'm Ava Martinez, and I want to talk about how families shape our community, not just mine, but all of ours. My grandparents came to Boise with nothing but hope, facing barriers because of their heritage. They didn't let that stop them. They worked, they built, and they gave back. My dad's organization funds scholarships for kids who dream big but need help getting there. My brother Diego started a mentorship program that's helped dozens of students. Some of you find your path." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "This isn't about one family being better. It's about resilience. It's about standing firm in who you are and lifting others up. We all draw lines sometimes without thinking. A word, a look, an assumption can cross them, hurt someone, divide us. But when we learn each other's stories, we build bridges instead." The gym was quiet. Then applause erupted, starting with Lila's enthusiastic claps and spreading like wildfire. Students whispered to each other, nodding. Teachers leaned forward, impressed. Connor in the back uncrossed his arms, his expression softening, not with guilt, but with something like respect. Ava stepped down, her heart racing not from nerves but from the weight of her words landing. She'd done more than share her family's story. She'd challenged everyone to think, arrange, look away. "You didn't. I mean, how was I supposed to know?" His voice was quieter now, almost sincere, and Ava could tell it wasn't just about her family's status, It was about the line he'd crossed, the assumptions he'd made. She met his eyes briefly, seeing a flicker of understanding there, and sat back down, feeling the crowd's energy shift in her favor. The assembly's impact rippled through the school. In the cafeteria, kids talked about her presentation, not just the facts, but the way she'd tied it to their lives. "I didn't know about the Martinez programs," one girl said. "Makes me want to apply for one." Sam the Doodler from English class approached her in the hall. "That was Dope 10:50 a.m. +07 August 11th, 2025 system. Cool, you nailed it. The story has been rewritten beautifully, hitting all the right notes for a compelling and educational YouTube narrative. The length is spot on, and the language feels authentic to the American setting. Here's the revised Chapter 3, with a focus on the lesson and character development expanded to meet your 16,000 character requirement. Here's the continuation and completion of the revised Chapter 3 artifact, ensuring it meets the 16,000 character requirement. In the courtyard at lunch, Lila was practically bouncing with excitement. "Ava, you crushed it up there. Everyone's talking about it." Even Tyler was nodding along. She grinned, and Ava smiled back, feeling the weight of the moment. "It's not about me, Lila. It's about all of us, how we can do better, be better." Kids around them overheard, and soon the cafeteria was abuzz with questions about the Martinez family's programs. "My cousin got into college because of one of those scholarships," a girl named Mia said, her eyes bright. "I had no idea it was your dad's thing." Ava shrugged modestly. "It's a family effort, just trying to give back." Over the next few days, the school felt different. Kids who'd once snickered at Connor's jabs now approached Ava with curiosity. Tyler stopped by her locker, his usual smirk replaced with a sheepish look. "Hey, about your presentation. My little brother could really use something like Diego's mentorship thing. Where do I sign him up?" Ava handed him a flyer from her bag, one she'd made with Lila for the new club they were starting. "Bring him to the community center next week. It's open to everyone." Tyler nodded, almost shy. "Cool. Thanks." The ripples kept spreading. In history class, Ms. Carter pulled Ava aside after a group project. "Your presentation got people thinking, Ava. I've had 3 students ask about your family's programs already." Ava smiled, tucking her braid behind her ear. "That's the goal, right? Getting people to see the bigger picture." Ms. Carter nodded. "You're doing more than that. You're showing them how to change it." At home that evening, Ava sat at the dinner table, her father's warm eyes on her as she recounted the week. "You didn't just stand up for yourself, mija," he said, his voice thick with pride. "You stood up for what's right. That's our family's way." Diego, home from college, leaned over with a grin. "Little sis, you're outdoing my state championship speech. Keep it up." Ava laughed, swatting his arm, but their words settled deep, reinforcing her purpose. By Thursday, Connor approached again, this time in the courtyard during free period. His hands were still in his pockets, but his posture was different, less cocky, more open. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, his voice low. "What you said about lines about assumptions, it hit me. My family moved here from out of state, and I guess I tried to act big to fit in. But I was wrong. Your presentation showed me what really matters. I want to help with your club if that's cool." Ava studied him, seeing sincerity in his eyes. "It's cool," she said, extending a hand. "Join us Monday. We're continuing Diego's work." Connor shook it, a small grin breaking through. "Deal." The assembly's impact lingered into the next week. In the hallways, kids who'd once ignored Ava now stopped to talk about scholarships, about Diego's legacy, about how they could get involved. The club sign-ups for the mentorship program spiked with names Ava didn't expect: Mia, Tyler's brother, even a quiet kid from the back of English class. At lunch under the oak tree, the group grew. Lila was practically a hype machine, rallying new faces to join. "This is bigger than us," she told Ava, her eyes shining. "It's the whole community coming together." Ava nodded, her heart swelling. That's the point. Building something that lasts. On Friday night, Ava journaled in her room, the soft glow of her desk lamp casting shadows across her notebook. She wrote about the week, about the desk, the slur, the confrontation, and how it led to the assembly. "It's not about winning a fight," she wrote, her pen steady. "It's about changing the game. Showing people that power isn't about pushing others down, it's about lifting them up. Assumptions hurt, but stories heal. My family's legacy isn't money or status. It's resilience, integrity, the courage to draw a line and hold it with dignity." She paused, reflecting on the faces in the gym, the applause, the nods in the hall. Some victories aren't loud. They're the quiet shifts in how we see each other. If this reaches one person, makes them rethink a word, a look, a choice, it's enough. The following week, the mentorship club kicked off. Connor showed up to the first meeting awkward but earnest, helping set up chairs at the community center. He wasn't the same kid who'd sprawled across her desk. He listened, asked questions, even called out a kid for a snide comment during a break. It wasn't perfect, old habits die hard, but it was progress. Ava led the session, sharing stories of her grandparents' struggles, Diego's triumphs, her own stand. Kids shared their own stories, tentative at first, then bolder, the room filling with voices. Ava's father checked in after the meeting, his smile wide. "You're building something special, mija. Not just our name, but our values." Diego called from college, his voice crackling through the phone. "You're the hero now, sis. Own it." Ava laughed, warmth spreading through her. She wasn't a hero, just a girl who'd refused to back down, who'd turned a moment of cruelty into a movement of connection. The school year progressed, and Lincoln High felt new. The Courtyard Oak became a hub for planning club events, community fairs, even a scholarship workshop. Connor joined the efforts, organizing a soccer clinic for younger kids, his energy focused now, not scattered. He apologized again privately to others. He'd wronged, his words quieter, but real. The divides of the first week, new kid versus popular kid, South Side versus old money, were shrinking as stories intertwined. One spring afternoon, Ava's club hosted a community fair in the gym, the same space where she'd spoken days before. Families came sharing food, music histories, Basque, Native American, Mexican, all mingling under the rafters. Connor presented, his voice steady, as he talked about his family's move to Boise, their struggles to fit in his own missteps. It was raw, vulnerable, and the crowd listened, clapping when he finished. Ava watched from the side, pride mixing with hope. This wasn't about her, it was about everyone finding their place. That night, journaling again, Ava wrote, "Lines aren't just boundaries. They're choices. Draw them with care. Cross them with respect. Prejudice backfires, but understanding endures." If this story reaches someone through a screen, a classroom, a conversation, let it teach power is presence, not force. Choose to lift, not divide. She closed her notebook, the words a promise to herself, to Boise, to anyone listening. The fair's success lingered. The club grew, with Mia leading a scholarship seminar, Tyler's brother joining the mentorship program, even Sam helping with flyers. The gym, once a battleground, became a gathering place. Ava walked home under Boise's wide sky, the wind carrying the city's heartbeat. She'd reclaimed more than a desk, she'd claimed a legacy, not just her family's, but one she was building with every step, every story, every line drawn and held.